To finish this tour of the Louise Bourgeois exhibition, to unravel the torment, we will spend a little bit of time with one of, if not a monumental artwork, sculpture, titled Maman, which is just there behind me, in my back. As you can see, Maman, the spider, as you have seen already in the exhibition, is a figure, a subject matter, a shape that comes on very regular basis in Louise Bourgeois' work. In our exhibition, for instance, in the earliest work by Louise Bourgeois, the print work, and it disappears in complete silence. You have, which is 1947, you already have the image, the figure of the spider trapped under the ceiling of a house. One of the last pieces in the exhibition is also a spider, half a woman, half a spider, in a very Kafkaesque metamorphosis. The sculpture is called the Lady in Waiting. The spider relates to many aspects of Louise Bourgeois' work. I would say that the first one is maybe autobiographical and relate to her interest in the notion of motherhood, which is at the center of her work. So the spider has autobiographical dimension in her work. She had a very emotional relationship to her mother, to both her parents, but to her mother, who passed away when Louise Bourgeois was in her very early 20s. Louise Bourgeois' family, as we have talked about in the exhibition, is coming from a very specific trade. They were in the tapestry business. They were fixing and selling antique tapestries. What does a spider do? What does a spider do? The spider is like a seamstress. The spider produces a web. The web is, on its own, a very sophisticated and complicated tapestry. So there is a connection here between the gestures of the seamstresses that have surrounded Louise Bourgeois during her entire youth, and of course the figure of the spider. The spider, this one is called Maman, Mamãe in Portuguese. That's the figure of the mother. The name Maman is the very affectionated name for mother. So there is almost an ambiguity here because you are facing a dominating figure, the sculpture, and eventually the mother. The name is very tender, soft, affectionated, though the sculpture itself is slightly scary. The spider itself, as an animal in mythologies, in fairy tales, has a very complex status. It's both a protective animal. The spider protects us from insects, mosquitoes, and so on and so forth. It's also the figure of patience and wisdom. This insect, this animal that stays in a corner and wait and wait and wait and demonstrates tremendous patience to reach what it is seeking for. In a way, it might be the figure of the artist, again, going back to this notion of the making of the web. I think of Louise Bourgeois' hands when she was drawing, when she was sewing. So there is a lot of connotation that are both biographical, autobiographical, and Louise Bourgeois herself was a mother, a wife, a protective mother, a protective wife. There is an element that for me is also important if we draw a line between the very first image of the spider from the engraving that we have in the exhibition that dates from 1947, this spider under a ceiling, and this the spider behind me. Maman. There is in Louise Bourgeois' work this moment where the body becomes an architecture, the architecture becomes a body, the idea that the body is a shelter. And as dominating and slightly scary as the spider can be, this is also a shelter. So you have this notion eventually that the body of maman, the body of the spider, is an architecture itself. And by the way, when you look at a spider, when the spider is in its web, the web, being the extension of her body, become also, the web and the spider become a shelter and a trap. So you have all this notion of shelter, parenthood, trap, danger, motherhood. One detail which is also very important in this piece is that under the body, the main body of the spider, you have this sack, this bag, this body bag that contain eggs. So of course the spider is also about pregnancy, about giving birth, and about the complexity of motherhood.